This episode is sponsored by Pros. Hey guys, Sarah here. No one has hair like yours, so why would you settle for mass-produced, one-size-fits-all hair care? My hair care struggles are this. As y'all know, I got real long hair, but my ends super dry because the oil from my scalp never makes it to my ends, even if I wait dang near 4 or 5 days before I wash my hair. However, since making the switch to made-to-order hair care with Pros, I can honestly say I've never been more in love with my hair. Pros makes custom hair care that's effective because the formulas are actually made to order for your unique needs. Using natural, sustainably sourced ingredients with proven results, Pros customizes every product in your routine from shampoo to supplements. I use the custom leave-in conditioner they made for me. It smells incredible. You know when you're getting real overstimulated and you're like, what's the smell that can ground me? The Pros leave-in conditioner that they gave me, I just kind of wrap myself in my hair, and I really do enjoy it. And it has made my hair a lot shinier, a lot more moisturized around the bottom. No, okay, so genuinely, truly, Pros made my hair like a lot shinier and healthier and more moisturized. Custom made-to-order hair care with Pros is the key to achieving all your hair goals this year. Take your free in-depth hair consultation and get 50% off your first subscription order today, plus 15% off and free shipping every subscription order after that. Go to pros.com/BCC. That's PROSE.com/BCC for your free in-depth hair consultation and 50% off your first subscription order.
Welcome to the chain. We're your hosts of the BCC Club. My name is Kendahl and Sarah, and I'm here with
Sarah Shower. And today our episode is what's classy if you're rich and trashy if you're poor.
Ooh, the list goes on, and I'm so excited to deep dive into it. Before we get into it, how was your week, Sarah?
Really good. I'm close to reading. I told you guys this last episode, or maybe I'll tell you it next episode. I'm going to read 7 books for January. I already have my books laid out that I want to read for February, and I've divided the system. I love reading nonfiction because I love learning. Fiction, however, is just being in someone else's head is so emotionally draining.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, I would have never had these thoughts.
Yeah.
But then also you would have never written the book,
and you don't know what's going to happen. Whereas a lot of time when you're reading, even if the nonfiction is about something so horrible, you're like, well, I know what happens.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be like, wow.
I'm also getting a library card.
Oh, fun. That's great to do.
Because I want to support everyone. I didn't realize that Book Talk has their entire, because a lot of people like books, you know, and when you have a lot of books, it could be seen as like waste. I did read a book on hoarding, so that is ironic, but I like to annotate books that are nonfiction. So when I get my library card, I'm going to just do fiction books, but then that also puts pressure on me to read fast.
That's why I've struggled with it. But even if you don't get books out of the library, you should still just get a library card.
I know. I want to get
really
a library
card.
It's
good for they do so much. But that's what I struggle with because I'm like, either I read a book in 2 days or I read a book in a year. Like, there's no in between. Because I feel like either I'm reading it or I'm like kind of putting it down for 6 weeks, picking it up, reading 2 pages, putting it down. So I've always been nervous about the library. But I also am a little, I do have OCD germophobia. And so sometimes I get a little nervous to be holding a book that someone else has held, which is crazy.
I mean, you could read with the gloves on.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
That would feel a little crazy too, but I could do that. I think I would just it's like why I struggle to shop at like places where there's like a thrift store or like even like any place where they're like reselling clothes. I get very anxious. No, I could obviously wash the clothes, but just looking through them, I get a little like stressed out. But I want to figure out a way to like I'm telling you, I talked to you about this on Block Party, but I'm like, we got to figure out a way to accommodate for germaphobes in a way that's so they can be involved in sustainability.
Yes.
Because even I was talking to you about straws and like reusable silverware.
Yes.
Makes me very anxious and stressed out. And I like can't. I have a hard time, even if it's like gone in the dishwasher, a hard time not imagining that like the person before me, like even at restaurants, I'm like, oh, someone else used this and now I'm holding it. And it freaks me out. And it's not based in anything that's real. It's insane, and I know that. But I do want to be sustainable, but it's hard sometimes when you're like, well, I don't want to use reusable straw, even if I'm the only one who's used it, because I am thinking about all the, like, could I have cleaned it perfectly? I don't know.
Well, it sounds like to invest in sustainability for you would be to invest in like your healthcare, because germophobia doesn't probably exist by itself. There is some other mental thing going on. So investing in healthcare for people who deal with contamination, OCD, and germophobia. Yeah. And then also the second part is I would look into how doctors and nurses deal with medical waste disposal, because like when you do surgeries, you have to throw away scissors every time. Yeah. So it's like, how do they deal with that system and like recycle those things?
Yeah.
So those two things combined would probably inform how to be more sustainable as a...
Yes. Yeah, because even like I have cups in my house. Yes. I have cups in my house that I'm like, I remember all the people who have come over to our house and used this cup, and I don't use those cups, which is crazy. I don't think these people are gross, to be clear. And I always feel bad because, like, you know, someone will be like, oh, can I have a sip of your thing? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm sorry. Well, usually I just say yes and then don't drink any more of it. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, oh, no, I'm sorry. And I always feel so bad because I'm like, I know if someone was like, oh, I don't want to drink after you, that would make me feel like gross. It has literally nothing to do with that person. It has nothing to do with you. You could be like the cleanest person, hottest person on earth, and I would still be like, I just don't want to. I get so stressed out.
No, yeah,
even drinking after myself. If you'll note, when I'm drinking off a straw, I always wipe, which doesn't make sense. It's like it's more germy to like wipe your straw off with your hand than it is to just keep drinking it. But I still always, or like if I've used a fork and then it's been like a little bit of time, like 10 minutes, I have to get a new fork, because I can't eat after myself after that long. Isn't that insane? It's
not insane. And one of the books I'm going to read in February, I don't have OCD, but I found out that a lot of my followers do. And I, like I said, and I don't know if it's the last episode or the future episode, I want to learn about other people. So I'm about to read a book on OCD. But I don't think that sounds insane at all. I think it sounds maladaptive.
Yeah.
But the thing is that's what you do when your brain is what's happening in your brain. I'll find out more why. Yeah. But like, I mean, I don't think it sounds insane at all, because we all have like our rituals that like when we see from the outside world would seem a little bit, but I assume it's been taken to a level, you know.
Yeah, well, and it's even gotten better over the years, because I used to have really bad, I wouldn't even know if some people say OCD never goes away, and so I hesitate to say it's gone, because I have moments, but I think it used to be all the time. Like when I was a kid, it was really bad. I had to like touch, I had a hard time getting ready for school because I had like touch everything 4 times, and I couldn't like, or I thought I was gonna, like my family was gonna light on fire. Like I was really anxious all the time.
Yeah.
And I was a germaphobe, and I like couldn't sit at, like I had my own silverware, I had my own plates. My mom bought me like my own stuff. And I like I was just very anxious all the time. As I've gotten older, I think just by forcing myself, I've been to therapy, and it's also just like forcing myself to be like, nope, you're not going to do this. Nothing's going to happen if you don't do this. It's fine. But if I get really anxious, or like if there's a timer on stuff, like when the ball's about to drop, I get very anxious. I'll go back to kind of my old ways of like touching stuff 4 times, or like if the microwave is going and it's like counting down, I get very anxious and stressed out. And if I'm just also stressed out, like I have a stressful thing going on, I can feel my germophobia like heightening and heightening and heightening. Because like most of the time I can drink after my girlfriend. Yeah. Because obviously we like make out, so that's fine. But then if I'm really, really stressed, all of a sudden I like can't drink after my girlfriend. I like don't even want to drink after myself. Like I get so now it's more like peaks and valleys. But when I was a kid, it was just like that all the time.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep talking about books.
No, I want to hear. They're all interesting.
I'm reading a book on like why, like why you should talk to strangers in like a suspicious world. And there's one point, I'm forgetting the first point, but the second point is like why people don't necessarily want to be in close proximity or talk to strangers is fear of infectious diseases.
Oh, and so, interesting.
Like, especially in a post-COVID world, because like sometimes if you invite strangers in, like if you're afraid of getting germs, like that's like, so a lot of that, though, is when it comes to infectious diseases in general, it's the fear of the unknown, right? And so keeping away from people is a sense of control.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know if I'm not a doctor, but like I'm saying, like, the routine is like, and you also feel pressure when like time. So I could understand, like, maybe if these are just like sort of control sort of things.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. And this is kind of a different thing, but just in terms of like people not wanting to talk to strangers. Yeah. I feel like we are getting into a world where it's like, we don't. Community is becoming less and less and less and less. Yeah. And I was thinking about it last night because I was walking my dog. Yeah. And this little like 4-year-old, 5-year-old like wandered out of her house, and she was like checking the mail. And I like didn't really realize because I was walking my dog and I was like picking up her shit. And then I just hear, hello. I was like, hi. It's just like this really cute little 4-year-old, 5-year-old sitting there. And she was so social. Like she was very cute. And she was like, I love your little dog. And I was like, thank you. I love your ponytail. I'm not great at talking to children.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I love your ponytail. And she was like, thank you. Do you like my ponytail holder? And I was like, oh, yeah, it's really pretty. Where did you get it? And she was like, my grandma's house. And then I was like, oh, she really wants to talk to me. Like, she's really wants to keep talking clearly. And then I was like, oh, she's kind of hinting to me she wants to pet my dog because she keeps being like, your dog is really cute.
Oh, yeah.
But then I was like, but then if you pet my dog and then it bites you, I'm going to like get my dog.
Legal trouble.
So scared.
Yeah.
Even my dog's like never bit anyone.
Yeah.
But I was like scared. I was like, if your grandma walks out and then you're like petting my dog, she'd be like, who are you? And then I was like, oh, should I introduce myself? Because and then I was like, oh, but for some reason I just realized, I was like, wow, the world's a little different now, or it is like, there is nothing bad about talking to this child, but I feel so like, if she walks in and is like, I met our neighbor Kendahl, the grandma's gonna be like, who's Kendahl? I'm calling the police.
Yeah.
Which is crazy and probably not what would have happened, but I do think there's just this more like, especially with kids, where you're like, I'm not supposed to be talking to you at all. And for some reason, I feel like it's kind of like the what's not illegal but feels illegal.
Yeah.
It felt like that. And I was like, oh, that's a bummer. Like, I feel like when I was a kid, I used to like run over to my neighbor's house and like hang out with them when I was that age. And it teaches kids how to like communicate and have fun and talk to other people in their community. But I feel so like, where's your grandma? Bring your grandma out. I don't know. I don't want to be talking to you without your grandma here.
Oh my gosh. No, I don't want to keep talking about the book, but what you're saying is exactly right. Like the term stranger danger has done so much harm.
Yes.
Because it's taught everyone that every stranger is bad.
Yes.
But realistically,
even yourself, you're like, I'm a stranger, so I'm going to kidnap this kid even though I don't want to.
It makes you doubt yourself. You're like, and now you're like, am I a predator? And wait, okay, I really need to read the book on OCD then, because that's another.
Do you think it's OCD?
No, I'm thinking that's another thought. That why did your brain go there?
Right, because I'm obviously, I shouldn't have said it. I'm not a child predator if you can't believe it.
No, I know.
But I literally was like, I'm talking to this child.
But you also know yourself.
Yes, and I'm like, I know I'm not, but I'm so worried that it's going to be perceived, like even people walking by.
Yeah.
I'm like walking my dog clearly. I'm like wearing an Udi. I don't know if you've ever worn an Udi, but I'm clearly not.
Is that like a onesie?
It's like no, it's like it's kind of like it's like a very cozy, it's like a big robe, but it's a shirt.
You're wearing an open robe outside.
I'm nude. Yes. What's the problem? No, I'm wearing this like big cozy thing. I'm like in my slippers with my dog. This child is in her yard talking to me there's a fence in between us. She's also clearly leading the conversation. It's not like I'm like peering over, whatever, but I'm so scared to be like perceived as like, oh, I'm putting this kid in danger. Or then you like question yourself where you're like, is it weird that I'm talking to this kid? Am I not supposed to be? But it's like, that's not normal. We should all be like community. But I've heard even other people be like, oh yeah, like I know when I was a kid, teachers could be like, I love you. Or they would, not in a weird way, but just like they spend every day with you.
Yes.
Like they were like, oh, I love you. Or they would like give you a hug if you were crying. And I know I've had people I know who are teachers have been like, yeah, you can't do that stuff anymore. Like you have to be so like, I cannot hug you because I'm your teacher.
Yeah.
I cannot really talk to you about personal things because I am your teacher.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get where that comes from, but it's also a huge bummer. It's like, yeah, you want to build community, and like kids are, I think a huge thing I've recently been thinking about is how we're kind of like, kids are becoming not a part of our community as much, where it's just kind of like, these things are for kids and these things are for adults and they don't talk to each other. Why is there you reading a book about it?
No, you should, if the grandma comes out and she's like, don't talk to strangers, you should be like, ma'am, most children are killed by family members or friends.
So really, I should take the kid and you should be careful.
No, seriously, statistically.
I'm like, kid, come with me. Yes. Come on. Because seriously, I'm like, I am like, you have to, even like, I know, like when I was a kid, I was watching this thing about how they used to make shows. Kids shows were also for adults. Like they would make kids shows and then they would put in jokes for adults. It's like Drake and Josh was for kids, but you could enjoy it as an adult. 100%. Yeah. Maybe it's not your first choice, but you could definitely sit and enjoy it. Whereas like in 2014, they were saying that like there was a huge shift to making kids shows just for kids. And like they're not enjoyable for anyone else and they're just for kids. And I think you even see like now, like when I was a kid, my mom would like bring me to work with her. We would go do things that were not just about me. You know what I mean? It was just like, oh, well, we have to like go do this thing because I'm not the only person on earth. And I think that's great. And I think like kids need to like go spend 6 hours at the DMV to be like, yeah, well, my mom owns a car, so we have to do this. Whereas I think parents now are still like, oh, my kid needs a babysitter at all times, or she needs like, if I'm doing this thing, she needs to go to like the water park with her nanny. And it's like, well, they don't need to be like, I just think it separates
stimulated
people. And like, yeah, your kid should come to places where there's going to be only adults. It's not like a strip club. I'm not a freak ass. But
none
like,
of our minds went there.
I don't want my neighbor's kid to go to a strip club tonight. It's like so scared. But I just think we separate it to where it's like, yeah, your kid should come to places where there's other adults so they can like, it's a community rather than just like, here's the kids and here's the adults and we don't talk to each other. But I think there becomes this very like stranger danger.
Yeah.
Makes people like, oh, am I bad? Am I being bad? I don't know. Do you ever feel that?
No, the organization that coined the term stranger danger, they actually started backpedaling on that slogan because it did separate way too many people. Like they ran through the statistics. They're like, okay, statistically in every sort of type of violence, like 80% of the time you're going to get attacked by a family or friend.
Yeah.
You know, but you should be suspicious of strangers. Like don't like walk around at night, headphones on, be like, I'm fine. My mom's not out right now. You know? But like it's made people like very fearful. And so like it's hard for like children and people as adults to make friends. Like realistically, if you or I were to walk outside right now and talk to a stranger, they would be a normal human who's like 100%. What? And you'd be like, do you want to talk?
And then desensitizes, that also makes people be like, well, anyone who I know is safe, which is like, that doesn't make any sense. Because also like, I've even seen like on TV where people like, kids will be like, I'm not supposed to talk to strangers. And then the person's like, okay, my name's James, I'm not a stranger. It's like, okay, where does that line end? Because then it's like, people are like, well, she's babysat by her uncle every single day because, I don't know, he's a family member and he's had, a lot of issues in the past, but well, what are you going to do? And it's like, that's not safe just because you know him, So I think it is, but it is this weird, I feel like we need to get more. Because even I remember when I used to be in the grocery store as a kid, my mom was always talking to the person next to us. People were chatting.
Yeah.
I don't do that stuff, really. Like,
oh, I love doing that.
I want to do, I really want to be better about it, but I think it feels so like, you're like, is everyone gonna be like, why are you talking to me?
Yeah. Oh my God. You've said too many trigger things. You need to read the book that I'm reading.
What book is? Tell me.
Oh my.
I do want to read it. You can always reference a book. I'm interested. You read interesting books. It'd be different if you were reading one of my books and you kept talking about.
It's like, a smut novel.
The smut you're reading. You're like,
wait,
this relates back to this.
Guys, this is the book I'm reading right now that everything that Kendahl is saying is like a prompt. It's called The Power of Strangers, The Benefits of Connecting in a Suspicious World. Like, we often assume that we're like imposing on people, but we're really not. I mean, unless someone looks visibly conflicted, like they've done studies, like if you talk to someone, 99 out of 100 times, they're going to open up to you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're trying to hit on someone, that is not the same as, but yes. And so, how was your week?
It was good. It was good. I made a friend, my neighbor's
your young neighbor,
granddaughter. And I painted my room, and I think I posted this on Instagram, but I got this wallpaper for my room. So we're trying to do a couple home renovations every month. I got this wallpaper that I really love, but the backdrop of the wallpaper, there's like little dogs on it, and then the backdrop is like it's like white, but it's like almost like it's closer to gray. So at first we were like, we should paint the other walls pink because there's pink in it. We should paint it green because there's green. Like we had all these different ideas, but I was like, I think that might be insane. Like that might be a little too much, especially because the wallpaper is pretty loud, and I want the bedroom to feel very relaxing.
Yes.
So then I was like, I'm gonna do the back of this as this color of the wallpaper. So I took it to Lowe's and I was like, can you color match the back of this wallpaper? And they did, and they sent me home with the paint. And I spent 2 days because I painted the ceiling as well, and I had to do 2 coats on it. And I swear to you, it took so long. It is maybe a half a shade different than the original paint color.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that was a waste of time. But it was, it looks a little, I will say it's a little more calming. Like it's not as stark white, but it is like really close to the same thing. And I took a really long time. Because when I just painted my kitchen a couple weeks ago, and it was so satisfying because I painted it like an olive green.
Yes.
And it felt just like, wow, I really changed the whole room. It feels completely different. So it felt very worth it. So I was like, painting stuff white is not fun. Also, because it was already white, so it was very hard to tell like what I'd painted already and what I hadn't painted. And then I would look back the next day and be like, oh, I missed that spot. And I'd have to get all my paint stuff out.
Can I ask you, is the white a matte or a glossy finish?
It is I picked it out. I can't remember. I think it's whatever he told me. I said, you tell me what I'm supposed to do. And he said, I think it was glossy. It might have been matte.
If it's matte, it's going to probably appear darker when it dries because like there is, when a glossy finish will reflect light, make it a bit lighter. If it's matte, it's going to just look flat.
Yeah.
So if it's there's so many different types of matte, like kind of medium matte.
Yeah.
It's like So
I just told him like you pick for me, and he was like okay. And so I think it might have been matte because it definitely got darker as it dried. So then it feels like probably matte. And I do think it's gonna look good. We haven't put the wallpaper up yet. My partner's mom is coming into town this weekend, and we're gonna do it together. It's like peel and stick wallpaper.
Yes.
And I think then I'll be like, oh, I'm glad I painted it because it's going to be the exact same color as the wallpaper. So I think it's going to look good.
Yes.
But it was not as satisfying, and it did take a lot of time. And I got paint on so much. Every time I try to like really set up the space to not get paint on it, it still is just gets on stuff.
That is the nature of paint. That is what it does.
And I feel bad. The one other thing is my partner had foot surgery in December. And we found out this week it didn't work. So we're going to do another foot surgery.
Oh, my God.
And I feel very sad for them because it's like, it's a lot. I mean, not being able to walk as a whole, our lives have been really about the fact that they can't walk because I need to help them with all of this stuff. And I feel they can't really go anywhere or do anything. Yeah, so we have to do that. But
we just spent like literally 10 minutes on paint, and then you were like, and their foot surgery didn't take.
I always forget the most. That was like a couple of weeks ago. I was like ranting about something. You were like, how's your weekend? I'm like, yeah, I bought broccoli at the store. And then you're like, at the very end, you're like, oh, and you got engaged, didn't you? And I was like, oh, yes, I got engaged? I really forget the important stuff, don't I? But yeah, I know, bummer. But hopefully this next one works.
Hopefully, Jordan's feet are better soon.
I know. I feel so bad. I feel really bad because I've even heard people have been like, oh, yeah, I broke my leg and I couldn't walk for like however many months. And it like really screws your mental health up, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when it's not. I think if we knew for like, okay, for the next 3 years, you're not going to be able to walk. We would be like, okay, let's set everything up. Let's really like make the apartment make sense for this. Let's like find ways you can get up and do stuff, whatever. Because it keeps being like, only 2 more weeks. We keep just being like, okay, well, let's just stay seated.
Yes.
So yeah, hopefully this works. But it's a bummer because usually surgeries are kind of like, we'll do this and then it'll be done.
Yeah.
But these, the doctor's kind of like, and then we'll see what, if it works.
Yeah.
Like, and then what?
I was going to say that our disability advocates, like everyone who's like disabled out there, is like, yes.
Yes. I mean, truly, but it really opens your eyes. And even like, my dad was in a wheelchair he was in a power chair, fully paralyzed for my whole life. And it's like, he really couldn't do, well, he could do anything, and but he also couldn't do much because he couldn't, it's also very expensive, as I also think another thing too, where it's like you see these people that are like, I have a power chair that lifts me up into the sky and I can fly around the city. And it's like, well, that's amazing, but it costs like $2 million or something.
Yeah.
But, so we watched a lot of TV. But I think also he was prepped for being like, I'm never not going to be paralyzed. Whereas Jordan keeps being like, well, in a couple weeks I'll be able to walk. So I got that to look forward to. And then at the 2-week mark, they're like, no, you can't actually. And then they're like, okay, 2 more weeks. And then you get through it. So I think, almost at this point, it's kind of like with my Adderall where I was like, I'm just going to stop trying. I don't have it until this. I don't have it. And I'm just going to like gear up to really like push through this time without it. Because I think it was it was hard on me mentally to be like going every day being like, is it here? And then being like, no. And me being like, okay, well, tomorrow I'll be able to do all this because all my medication and then not have it. That was tough. So I think the in-between period is hard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The come down.
Yeah. And you know what is also really hard?
The come down from drugs for the rich and the poor, often treated vastly different, but incredibly similar. This is classy if you're rich, trashy if you're poor.
Hey guys, Sarah here. No one has hair like yours, so why would you settle for mass-produced, one-size-fits-all hair care? My hair care struggles are this. As y'all know, I got real long hair. Or some of you don't, you only listen, and I appreciate you still. But my ends super dry because the oil from my scalp never makes it to my ends, even if I wait dang near 4 or 5 days before I wash my hair. However, since making the switch to made-to-order hair care with Pros, I can honestly say I've never been more in love with my hair. Pros makes custom hair care that's effective because the formulas are actually made to order for your unique needs. Using natural, sustainably sourced ingredients with proven results, Pros customizes every product in your routine from shampoo to supplements. First, Pros starts by asking about my hair goals. Like, I need increased volume. When you got long hair, y'all know you lose a lot of volume. And you're like, Sarah, get layers. I refuse. And I also need, of course, moisture in my ends. Their in-depth consultation also asks about you as a person. Pros asked me really unexpected things like, am I pregnant? I was like, no, am I? No, I'm not. And I was like, what could that have to do with my hair? Prenatal vitamins, a lot of the vitamins are going to your uterus, I think. It also asks about my eating habits, which after filling it in, I don't feel too good, but you know what? We're working on everything. Next, pros analyze all my answers and handpick clean, sustainably sourced ingredients to help me reach my hair goals. I use the custom leave-in conditioner they made for me. It smells incredible. When you're getting real overstimulated and you're like, what's this smell that can ground me? The Pros leave-in conditioner that they gave me, I just kind of wrap myself in my hair, and I really do enjoy it. And it has made my hair a lot shinier, a lot more moisturized around the bottom. No, okay, so genuinely, truly, Pros made my hair a lot shinier and healthier and more moisturized. Custom made-to-order hair care with Pros is the key to achieving all your hair goals this year. Take your free in-depth hair consultation and get 50% off your first subscription order today, plus 15% off and free shipping every subscription order after that. Go to pros.com/BCC. That's PROSE.com/BCC for your free in-depth hair consultation and 50% off your first subscription order.
There's this phenomenon that there's so many things that if you do it, people do it all the time when they're rich, and it is considered cool. It's considered nice. It's classy. It's normal. Never thought about.
Yeah.
Person who doesn't have a lot of money does the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's considered pretty trashy. So we're going to be going through some examples of that today. According to statistics from 2019, rich people are those who earn an annual income of $300,000 or more. For 2021, you're in the top 1% if you earn $819,324 or more each year. The top 5% of income earners make $3,335,891 per year.
$335,891.
I don't even know what I said. $206.91.
People making $3,000 are like, okay, now we're cooking with gas.
People with the top 1% of net worth in the U.S. in 2022 had $10,815,000. I'm saying it wrong.
No, you're not.
$10 million. Oh, yeah, I did it right. $10,815,000 in net worth. And the current wealthiest Americans are Elon Musk, $180 billion, and Jeffrey Bezos, $114 billion.
Oh, my God.
Wow, that's crazy. And Steven Spielberg and George Lucas are the wealthiest American entertainers. Currently, both have an estimated net worth of $8 billion each. Rihanna, Jay-Z, Taylor Swift are also recent billionaires, entertainers who have joined that list. So here are this is the big list. This is just a list of things that are classy if you're rich and trashy if you're poor.
Feel free to add any in the comments if we forget some. Asking for money. It's from the poor, it's out of desperation, it's begging. Rich people, a big party with friends, fundraisers, right? Asking for government handouts, quote unquote. Trashy if you're poor.
Yeah.
But the government bailing out your company if you're rich.
Classy.
Very
cool. Very neat.
No, seriously. Oh my gosh. So many, the stimulus checks. Everyone got $2,000 or whatever, and then all the Republicans nearly shit their panties.
That was the issue. That was the how are we going to come back from this?
But then all the businesses got millions and billions of dollars, and no one was like, God, sucking the teat of the government, are we?
Yeah, I'm like, what are these people's obsession with McDonald's?
Seriously.
They're like, McDonald's needs it, okay? I'm like, do you work for them? Is your dad Mr. McDonald? I don't understand.
People, these companies have so much money. People cannot conceptualize $1 trillion.
Yeah.
They're pitting us against each other.
100%. It is really wild. Also, having a tiny home. If you're poor, people are like, you can't afford much space. And if you're rich, you got these decked out tiny homes in fancy towns outside of cities. Or, this wasn't listed, but maybe you live in a RV with 8 of your kids and they each have a bunk, but it looks really expensive and all the decorations are from Target and that's considered classy.
Yes. Well, I would just edit this a wee bit. I would say poor mobile homes, rich RVs.
Oh, that's yeah.
And it's as if intention really matters. You're if you're if I live in an RV, therefore I'm better than mobile home people. It's no. You're just on wheels.
Yep.
you're like, I mean, we're splitting hairs at this point.
Right.
Like, and also mobile homes are incredibly like, they can be so decadent, right?
Yeah.
They just have such a negative connotation because people hate the poor. It's just, this is why we're doing the episode.
Yeah, there's also added onto that living with no electricity. If you're rich, it's because it's fun.
Oh, yeah.
Versus needing it. And I actually think that's so true because honestly, I find it much less traumatizing. I've never been in either of these situations, but I feel like it would be less traumatizing if your parents sat you down and was like, look, we don't have any money.
Yeah.
We're going to have some fun, okay? Every time we make a bath, we're going to heat it up on the fire and then we're going to put it. But this is just the situation we're in. It would feel like less traumatizing. Like, this is hard, but I understand what's going on. And my mom's very loving. Versus like, if I had a rich mom who was just like, no electricity for you. Can't tell you why. I'm just having fun on my social media. I would be like, help me.
You're on like a retreat to like refresh your mental health. Oh, there we go. Living in a tent, you're doing it for like a retreat versus. But yeah, I think, what was I going to say? This is, I kind of, my mind went to like squatters, right?
Yeah.
Like if there's someone living in like a broken down low income home, squatter's bad. But like, I mean, if you ask a friend to house sit for you and then you go off to like the Cape for 3 months, they're a squatter, right? Like,
sure.
If you try to kick them out, they legally could stay there for a bit. Yeah.
Wow. I got to get into that.
Squatting is so...
Like, gotta be doing more of it.
I want to read a book on the ethics of squatting.
Because I actually think it really is one of those topics that you can keep being like, okay, but you probably couldn't do this. And someone usually is like, no, you actually could. And you're like, okay, but you couldn't do this. Like, no, you could. Yeah. But I want to know the ins and outs because I think if you learn the ins and outs of squatting, you might be able to make yourself a self-made billionaire.
No, seriously. I mean, the thing is like, I don't think if the owner is not willing to get physical with you, they can't get you out of the house, right? Because squatters do have rights.
Can the police can't do anything?
Well, squatters do have rights. It really depends on how long you have been in the home. But God forbid, you better not need to go grocery shopping or go to work. Yeah. If you leave the premises, they can change the locks.
So try squatting in like safety shelters, like
if the safety shelters are owned by the government, and see, this is where the government gets off.
I mean if someone's like built an underground like
a bunker,
that's what I meant to say, like a bunker, squat in that, and then you'll never have to leave.
Now, so squatters have now entered into dangerous territory for themselves. Squatting in a bunker of someone who's preparing for the apocalypse, they most likely also have weapons.
That probably could get you out of there.
Yeah.
Okay, there's also having a barren house. We see it all the time. I mean, Kim Kardashian seems as though she may own not a single thing.
Yeah.
Not even a sink. Have you seen her sink?
No.
Her sink, it's actually kind of fun. It is flat.
Yeah.
But then by like a millimeter, it's not flat, so the water does drain.
Yes.
Which is very funny because you go, well, how do you wash dishes? And then you have that realization of like, she's probably never washed a dish.
Oh, no.
Wild. Which I'm always like, how is that not inconvenient? Especially when you have babies.
Yes.
And then I remember maybe she just had nannies.
Oh, yeah.
But it is wild because I'm like, there's so many times a day if I had people who were like working for me that I'd be like, oh, I wish I could wash this dish just really fast, but I need Janelle to do it because I don't have a working sink. I don't know. Very, honestly, difficult. But obviously, if you're poor and you have a barren home, people are like, oh, you can't afford furniture.
I am so sorry to do this, everyone. This relates to another book I read this month.
Don't apologize.
It's called The Hoarders, right? So the pendulum's going to swing in the opposite direction. Okay, so having a barren house, minimalism versus like maximalism and like clutter. People often moralize clutter, right? And so it goes by like, okay, if you have more things and clutter and okay, this is how it affects the poor. Rich people can afford to collect antiques, and Kim Kardashian, who is a minimalist, does have warehouses full of like Yeezy clothes and all these things. She's
not a minimalist by any means.
No, and so like she is technically hoarding, right? But like since they are expensive goods that are taken care of, everyone in their mind has moralized what she's collecting. She's like, oh, since it's not dirty and it's expensive, it is good. However, if you were to take the number of things that she does have and give it to someone who's low income with much tighter space and also make them items that are not of as much value like trash, right? That means it's trashy, right? Like if someone hoards when they're poor, they cannot afford to hoard expensive items, so they're going to collect more things that are considered trash, and that's how people moralize hoarding, right?
Is there and I'm just wondering if they talk about it in this book, is there a difference though between like, because I'm just thinking about the show Hoarders. That's like really the only reference I have, luckily, to this.
Yes.
Is there a difference though between the way, because I think of hoarder and I'm like, a person who's collected so much stuff that they cannot live their life in the same way, in a healthy way.
Yes.
They can't even get to the bathroom. They can't because there's so much stuff.
Yes.
Does it talk about like the difference between, like, is there a line that puts you into the hoarder category if you are then, it's causing dirt, bugs, accumulation of things, and you can't continue to live your life in the same way?
Yes. Okay. So like hoarding falls into the category of overconsumption. And if you think about other categories of overconsumption, you could easily talk about weight or like alcoholism, right? And so like people, if you think about hoarding, right? Hoarding is the extreme like end of it, but people are collectors, right? The difference between like over consuming and collecting is intention and the amount of time that you hold on to the item, right? You did a sketch on Stanley Cups. When people over consume, they are not buying with intention, and they are also quickly cycling through items. So every environmentalist is like, yeah, the problem is if you throw away the Stanley Cup and just pick
There's
up
no
something.
point.
Yeah. But so
and you see that even with, there's like influencers like, I'm a Stanley Cup influencer. I own 75 Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
I'm like, so you just completely ruined the point of having a reusable water bottle.
Yes.
There's no point.
However, collecting often differentiates itself is because collecting is often not trendy. Like if you collect Legos or you collect Disney memorabilia, that's not like of the popular culture usually at the time as Stanley Cups like will cycle through. And also you throw away the Stanley Cups a lot quicker than you would like. I would not throw away my Lego collection. Right. And that's how environmentalists would separate collectors versus hoarders. However, with hoarding though, is that like you talk about when it gets to a point where it starts to affect your health, and then you think about other types of overconsumption. If the show Hoarders is incredibly damaging for a hoarder.
Sure, 100%.
Because
it's so unhelpful. There's no point. I mean, you can't, it's kind of like when people are addicted to drugs, and I've seen this so many times, they're like, all right, we're putting them in a rehab for 24 hours. It's like, okay.
You're literally going to like kill them, right? Like, so you were talking about your OCD. Your rituals and your processes are not what's wrong, right?
Right. It's something
there's something inside.
Down,
And so that's the same with like hoarding. That's the same with alcoholism. Hoarding is not just like you've too much stuff and you don't know how to get rid of it. Yeah. Like there is something, you are like something with the items, it's a sense of control sort of thing. Like if someone, like if you just take it all away, again, it's like detoxing someone who's on drugs. It's not that people who overconsume drugs or alcohol are like, oh, now it's not in my eyesight. Now I'm fine. Like there's something deeper going on. And so when it starts to affect your health, you need a mental health care professional. And then you can slowly start to clean out the clutter, right? Because we live in a consumeristic society, right? So people are going to overconsume in literally any way, whether you have a lot of shoes or a lot of shirts. Like the people moralize what is okay to collect and what is not okay to collect.
That's really true.
Yeah. And so like you need to be aware of that. And also, so when it starts to affect your health, be very careful of like how you approach it. Because like this is now a mental health conversation. Yeah. So yes.
100%.
Sorry, that was a lot. I would read the Hoarder's Guide, guys.
It's it's fascinating, especially because I think there's also like I much more identify as like a minimalist. I don't own a ton of. I mean, just by watching this podcast, you're like kind of wears the same shirt every time. I really wear. I don't have a ton of clothes. I don't have a ton. And when I met my partner, my room was like nothing. It was like my bed. Yeah. And then I really liked making it look nice. Like I really liked it, but it would be like on the shelves would be like a plant and a candle. Yeah. And a little jar of quarters. And it was just very simple, and I didn't have a lot. And I really liked it that way. My partner is much more of a maximalist. Yeah. Has a lot of stuff, loves to buy little trinkets, loves to get like merch, loves to, all that type of stuff that I just never really did. And I think one thing we've talked about too is that when we've met in the middle a little bit, is that sometimes I'm like, I feel like it's put on me, not by them, but it's like, oh, I'm throwing stuff out. So if I'm getting rid of stuff which some of this stuff is garbage. You can't recycle it. Some of this stuff is stuff you can't donate. Or some of it's like, well, I have to throw it away. And that is being considered the wasteful part. But in my opinion, the wasteful part is purchasing it. Do you know what I mean? Because once you've purchased it, it exists. So whether or not you throw it away or keep it in your house and never use it, at the end of the day, I mean, versus it being in a landfill versus it being in your house. But it's like the way, once all of this ends, that will still exist and be there in your house. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Where I think it's like where you can, some people put a lot of guilt. This is a little different than hoarding, but like put guilt on themselves for throwing stuff away. I used to do it a lot with clothes where I would like buy something I thought I liked and then I just like wouldn't wear it. And then I would feel too guilty to throw it away or donate it or whatever because I was like, I bought this. But it's like, it doesn't do anything to sit in your house. The part you need to work on is not the not throwing it away. It's the how you choose to buy something. The like, oh, when I'm at a store, should I not buy things so like just because it fits and I should do it even if I don't really know how I feel about it? It's like, should I buy things just because they're available versus like really loving something? And like maybe if you're able to spending more money on something that's more sustainable and is going to last longer, whatever. But the throwing away of it is a reaction to the poor choice of buying it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think sometimes people can feel just really guilty to get rid of stuff. But that, I don't know. It just feels like that's actually not the issue. It's the before part of getting it. Like the person who's made it and produced it has already done all the things to the environment to make it, and then also you've purchased it and now it exists. So here it is.
Well,
you know?
Yeah, I mean, they're like when you purchase with intention. But also like you were saying, you feel guilty if you throw something away. You can, but I mean, with that, like you can see how like some sort of like thoughts can like spiral, right? Like if you feel guilt, oh, I'm contributing to waste, I'll just keep it in my house. Right. Like that can like build off of each other and immediately become, and like having too much guilt or too much trash can easily start to like hurt you. Right. So like, yes, buying with intention, and that is also kind of what often separates like someone who overconsumes without intention and someone who collects, because when you collect, you're purchasing with intention. Yeah. So just be aware of that. And also, like, I wouldn't put too much blame on yourself from throwing things out. You're right. Like, supply and demand is a huge thing. If you're like trying to cut down on the amount of meat that the world produces, because you know, like it's not like the not sustainable farming practices, if you don't even purchase a certain type of meat, like yes, that animal's literally already dead and packaged, but the lack of your dollar is signaling to the company there is less need for this. So like just be aware also, I think a lot of people place way too much blame on themselves as the individuals. Yeah. We are all part of a system that sets us all up to fail, right? And it like consuming with intention is so important. But like think about, you know, when we're talking about like plastic or like paper straws, where we all started to freak out. We're like, okay, we can only use paper straws. And then we zoomed out and we were like, they're literally dumping oil in the Gulf Coast. Yeah. Like you should purchase with intention and like just try to, you know, recycle as much as you can, but realize realistically the main perpetrator is the company itself. It's
for everything. Even I even know people. I think there's a lot of discussion around like having kids now, where people are like, that I know are like, I'm not gonna have a kid. It's too bad for the environment. It's too. Which I'm like, everything we do is bad for the environment. But I think these are people like someone who like really wants a kid. They're like, well, I've dreamed my whole life having a kid, but that's so bad for the environment, so I'm just not gonna do it. And I'm like, you actually are not the problem. Anything, even if you had 50 kids, it couldn't even compare to, and I think if you are about to have a kid, you should be thinking about all of those things. I think there are, like if you're like, I don't know, I think there's so many things to think about if you're deciding to have a kid. But at the same time, it's like, even if you every morning go out to the ocean and dump a bucket of oil because you're like, I don't know, a horrible person.
Stop doing that.
It's still, maybe don't do that. But also it's just like the effect is so small comparatively to what businesses are doing. And so that does not mean to not be eco-friendly and try your best. But I think you can only do what works for you a lot of the times where you're like, what is going to make my quality of life sustainable for me and sustainable for the earth? But if something's like, well, my life sucks because every morning I don't take showers anymore because it's bad for the environment. Like, no, you don't need to do that. It's actually not really. The effects are so small comparatively.
Yes, it's like people don't know that there's a difference between consumption and overconsumption, and people just assume that any sort of buying is overconsumption. Like capitalism is of American culture. And another thing that's of American culture is consuming alcohol, right? Like if you go to a bar and you have 2 drinks in one night, anyone who doesn't drink regularly could be like, oh my God, you're a drunk.
Yeah.
But you have consumed with intention, right?
Yes.
You've given enough time between drinks. You know what's in your price range, right? And so since they don't engage in that type of consumption at all, they could accuse you of that. Or anyone who's just never interacted with consumption, which is like, where did you come from?
Yes.
But like you can consume alcohol with intention and not be a drunk. And in a similar way, you can consume products with intention and not be over-consuming.
Yes. Or I guess if like a person who's an alcoholic, like I guess like if you and I went out to a bar and you had 1 drink, I'd be like,
I'd need to call a couple of people
because this isn't good. Like it's the intention where I'd be like, well, Sarah doesn't drink, so I don't know what she's drinking. So I think, it is the intent. It's like behind it. The same thing doesn't equal. Yeah. So anyways, I just think that is definitely trashy if you're rich. Nope, trashy if you're poor, trashy if you're rich.
I think it's, I think we need to be holding a lot of rich people do things that are arguably trashy, because something I'd like to point out when the Stanley Cup situation, and I'm not defending anyone's right to own it, do what you need, like whatever. But you know when the ladies were waiting outside of Target for like 24 hours and everyone's like, that's so trashy. You wouldn't know what's trashy? Yeah. A rich person waiting a month for a car when they already have 39 other cars. If we had a camera and you filmed them waiting for a car that they didn't need, that is the same as if they were waiting outside. They were just in their home.
It's also like, I'm sorry, like, but it's just different. If you don't have any money and the one thing that is going to make you happy is waiting outside with your friend to get a cup.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally fine. And I think it's just so people, and it's just like, it's been like this forever. It's like, this is purposeful. It's like placed on us, but it's just like working class people to poor people just against each other, so mean to each other. And this Stanley Cup situation is just one of those situations. It's hardly a situation, but it's just one of those other things where I'm like, I think it's some people, I'm like, it's your whole personality. I think it's funny privately. I'm like, that's a weird thing to have, but it's like to be so like mean about it. It's just like, wow, there are really companies who are like ruining our lives that we just don't think about ever. And it doesn't matter that people, I don't know. It's just, every issue is created by like 3 companies.
Yes.
And then we're all just mad at each other, and that is unfortunate, but that's how it's always been, I guess.
Yes. You guys need to read The Hoarders, because here's like my final thing. Overconsumption is such an important topic. However, overconsumption is usually applied to mass-produced goods. Mm-hmm. And who buys mass-produced goods? Low-income, middle-income people. And if your criticism only focuses on low and middle income, you're missing the main...
Yeah, because why can they not afford food that is good? Because they're not paid enough.
Yeah, that means the rich are getting off scot-free. Who's making the cups?
Yeah.
Like, who's making a majority of the environmental waste? We're like, oh, look at these rabid poor people.
Right.
Zoom out, who made the cups?
Yeah. So
it's an important conversation, but you got to include the rich. Okay,
I think this is a good one. Having someone else raise your damn kids.
Yes, exactly. You got a nanny. Oh, that's so classy. You got your cousin. You're just a slob.
Or like a daycare or whatever.
Your like, mom. It takes a village. Oh, so if you pay the village, it's fine. But if the village comes with blood, I mean, your blood, like you're related to them.
If you stabbed your mom and said, you better be my babysitter. No, that's so true. And I think it is like, once again, like looking back, like as an adult, if I were to look back and be like, oh, I went to a daycare because my mom had to work a job, I would be like, that does not feel traumatizing to me. I mean, I don't think going to a daycare is traumatizing, to be clear, at all. I think it's great, and I would send my kid to a daycare. But I am like, that makes sense in my head. Rather, if my mom was just really rich and I was like, oh yeah, growing up I spent a lot of time with a nanny because my mom, I don't think, wanted to spend time with me. Like, that is so hurtful and so upsetting and like, whatever. Whereas I feel like, growing up I got to spend a ton of time with my mom, but I'm always like, wow, she really made so much time for me, even though she was working really hard also. That's so nice to feel rather than the other way around. So I'm like, one feels so much more nice, actually.
Yeah, it does. There's also having tons of pets. If you have a lot, if you're poor and you have a lot of cats, you're a hoarder. And if you're rich, you have a lot of cats, you're an animal rescuer. Yeah, like, I know the Jenners have, like, 5 dogs. But, like, you see someone in a low-income neighborhood.
with a bunch of dogs.
Guys, you really got to read. Okay, so animal hoarding is a different category of hoarding. But since it's a life, so it is. There's some nuance to it. But
people kid hoard.
Yeah. Okay, so again,
is it talk about it in the book?
Hoarding is an extreme behavior, and usually, if someone is having a lot of children, there is something going on, and there needs to be some education and investment in healthcare.
Yeah.
And that, because if we start to place the blame on the individual, we get into a slippery slope of eugenics.
Yeah.
And yes.
Yes. I do think, though, it's interesting. Once again, here comes Kendahl with the fact she doesn't remember.
It's okay. Let's hear it.
But I remember I saw something that it was like, it was an article, and it was not a TikTok. It was an article.
It is an article.
And it was talking about how, I can't remember if it was 4 or 5, but basically, I think it was 4.
Yes.
After you've had 4 kids, there is no possible way to give the correct amount of time that would be needed for a child's development to be given to them. There's just no way. It's not possible. So I always think it's very interesting for someone to make, and maybe they just don't know. Maybe they didn't read that, whatever. But especially people who, there are obviously any type of people. So there are people who are child psychologists who have 20 kids. There's all these types of people. To be a parent who knows that, you know that, and you still have a kid feels so interesting. But even if you don't know that exact fact, you must know that if you have 10 kids versus 2, you're not giving as much attention to each kid as you would if you had 2 kids. So I always am like, why? What is the pull to do that? Like, what is the pull? And I think some people are like, I want a big family. I want a whatever. And I'm like, that's very selfish. Like, even I think about, and I don't know if I'm going to have kids or not, but when I think about not having kids, I'm always like, oh, but like, I don't know, it'd be really nice to have an adult kid who'd be friends with, what if then I'm old, who's going to take care of me if I haven't had kids? And I'm like, well, that's a pretty selfish reason to have a kid.
Yeah.
You can't have a kid because you want someone to take care of you when you're older. Although that I think is the reason a lot of people have kids. They're like, well, I want to have a kid because I. And it's like, well, it's not, I don't know. I think it should just be very complicated, where if you were really thinking about the child, you would not have 6 kids because that's hard. It's hard to have 6 kids.
Yeah.
And you're going to be stressed, and your house is going to be a mess, and because of course.
Yeah.
Anyways.
No, exactly. And what you're saying is what differentiates having 4 kids versus 10 is intention.
Yeah.
What if you're having 10 kids and you didn't have any intention to have 10 kids? Yeah. That shines a spotlight on lack of education somewhere, or healthcare rights. Because you don't see rich people without no intention having 10 kids.
Right.
There is a societal issue happening there. And but if you're but also you do have to take in consideration the children's health. Eventually a child will be taking care of another child. Yeah. And that is how damaging systems are. If we don't have free healthcare or education, then yes, you will be having children take care of other children, because the original creator of the system is also a victim of the system itself. That trauma is passed down through families.
Yeah. But I guess if I knew someone who had no money, they were poor.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I said that. It's obvious.
They're poor.
I'm looking at the document. And they are working 2 jobs. They have no time. They're super busy. And they are like, I'm pregnant with my 5th kid. I think people would be like, bad. Why are you doing that? That's crazy. You don't even have time for the kids you have. But then you look at Kim Kardashian, who's probably so she's like, I'm not the only rich person, but she's always my example. But and she listens to this podcast, I'm sure.
She does.
She is so busy. She works 50 jobs. It's very different. But you know what I mean? She does not have time to raise the amount of kids she has.
Yes.
She has 6 nannies. She doesn't have time. But that is not looked at. Every time she's pregnant, people are like, another beautiful baby to add to the Kardashians. Yeah. But it's she does not, she doesn't have time to spend with her kids, but she just makes it look a little bit calmer, maybe. So people are like, that's fine.
That lends itself to another classy if you're rich, trashy if you're poor, making your kids work. Because Kim's kids, all those kids are definitely billboards. They're trust me, there's going to be some kids line in the near future, and they're going to be working. But God forbid if a poor kid works. Oh, you're just the trashiest person in the it's everywhere, guys.
It really is everything.
I feel like a conspiracy theorist. I'm like, God, they're in the water, man.
There's also
living in a
hotel, which I don't know. I didn't know people lived in 5-star hotels. But it says Jake said it's still unclear to me if Zach and Cody were rich or poor. I think they were poor.
I think I know that Liv Tyler lived in a hotel.
Oh wow.
And she lived with a bunch of other like rock stars. But the thing
Eloise is, at the Plaza.
Yeah.
Was she rich? I haven't seen that movie.
I don't know.
Or did she work at the Plaza? She owned the Plaza? I don't get it.
I don't know. But I know that Liv Tyler also, let me clarify, didn't know that her dad was Steven Tyler until she saw a video of him on TV and she was like, his mouth is big, my mouth is big. That is my father. And her mom was like, yes.
Whoa.
But she still lived at a hotel. So this is not me targeting Liv Tyler. I don't know if you knew why you were there. Sorry.
That's so insane.
Yeah.
There's also not working a real job. That's totally true. If you're not working a job while still getting income, lower class would be welfare, middle class unemployment, upper class constant flow of assets.
Yeah.
And I really, I mean, and I didn't realize this until recently. I mean, as you get older, you're like, everyone, like I remember being in, like I was in acting school and I probably was in $20,000 worth of credit card debt and I had no money, no savings, nothing. And then, you'd have friends who'd be like, oh, girl, same. And then I just thought, I was like, we're all poor. We had none of us have money. Like, I make $20,000 a year and that's normal. And we all have whatever. And then as you get older, people are like, well, yeah, I mean, I make the same income as you, but like when my parents die, like I'll get their $5.5 million house. And like also my dad invested stocks for me when I was a baby. So now I have $2 million in a savings bond. I'm like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
What? And it is wild. And there are people where it's like, they just don't have to ever work. And it's not that they earned it and they worked really hard for 20 years and got that money and now they can just chill. It is truly like they've done nothing.
Oh my God. This is what has fucked me up as someone who is like autistic. I am so literal. Like what you said, like when you say like, I'm broke, like you meant it, right?
Yeah.
And so like, I distinctly remember I told someone one time, I'm having a panic attack. They watched me have a panic attack. And then later I was like, sorry about the panic attack. And they were like, I thought you were joking.
Wait, what?
They didn't wait because they would also say like, oh, I'm having a panic attack.
Oh,
I'm having it
I see.
Like heightened anxiety. And
you're like banging your head against a wall. They're like, no, I do that too. I commit to the bit, girl.
I was like dry heaving and they were like, they have been using the term panic attack, but they've never actually had one.
Yeah.
And so like that's what messes with me, like just because I'm so literal. Like I imagine you're just like when you find out someone is a millionaire, you're like,
what?
Wait a minute.
Because it's like to me, I would not. Okay, let's say you fired me from this, but you said no more. You've been replaced.
Yeah.
I don't. My social media, all it gets deleted. I have no money.
I have that type of power. Yeah.
Yes. Every day I'm like, Sarah, please. No, I'm just kidding. I still would not be like, I have no money because I own my house, which is like. I'm very lucky to get to do that. It's like an asset. Yeah. I would never be walking around me like, I'm the same as you, girl. To these people who are like, oh yeah, I work at a fast food restaurant, for example, and have no savings and I can't, I'm sick today. I can't afford to go to the doctor. Yeah. Like we are not the same. And that I don't need to pretend to be, but I do think there's this obsession for some reason with people like wanting to be poor, not actually wanting to be poor, but they want to be seen as poor. Yes. Almost kind of like how people want to be seen as mentally unwell when they're not mentally unwell. Or everyone has a bad day, you guys. I'm just saying, like, you can be depressed but not have clinical depression. Yes. Like you can be anxious, not whatever. I don't need to explain that. But I think it is this obsession with being like a victim of like, I was poor and I have bad mental health and you even see it down to like, I am non-functioning without ADHD medication. Yeah. I can function, but I have a really tough time and my life is deeply affected. There's a lot of people who are like, I have ADHD and they like don't have it. You just don't have it. You know. Yeah. And I'm not going to say, I don't know who's who. I'm not like that girl definitely doesn't have it because there's no way for me to know. And I'm sure there's people who look at me and are like, well, she doesn't seem like she has ADHD. Who knows? But there are just people who are constantly trying to be more and more of a victim for some reason. And I really do not get that. I don't get it.
So, okay, like there's a huge misuse of like clinical terms and there's such a conversation to be had about, I was going to say your jacket, like gender affirming care is Gender-affirming healthcare saves lives. Much like mental health care, like there are so many people who self-diagnose, which is valid. However, there's nuance to this. People do misuse so many clinical terms, like saying I'm so OCD, and people who have, or for OCD, I'm having intrusive thoughts. People have misused intrusive thoughts now, where like intrusive thoughts could mean like your parents are literally going to die. And now, so like some people are like, I'm having an intrusive thought, and they like knock a can off the table. That is an impulsive thought. And if you like, if you're labeling that as intrusive thoughts, people with actual intrusive thoughts, with like violent intrusive thoughts, like you're now going to demonize them because you're like, oh, that's not what my intrusive thoughts looks like. So misusing medical terms. But yeah, like people do. It's
like they want to be poor. I don't get it. But I feel like I had friends in college who would be like, like my family, there were like days where like we didn't know what we were going to even eat. And then I start to learn more about them, and I'm like, that did not happen. There's no way. There's no way. And if maybe like your parents are both really wealthy and have like really consistent jobs and have retirement and have like all of these things that like, which I understand, like if you haven't truly been like really, really poor, which like I've never been really, really poor where I didn't know what I was going to eat. I've never been that. Yeah. It's hard to understand maybe that. Like if you ever grew up you were like upper middle class and your parents were like, we're tight on money. Yeah. Which kind of meant just like, we can't go on like a 20-day vacation this month. I'm so sorry.
18.
That to a kid maybe does feel stressful because you're like, well, I don't have anything to compare that to. So money's tight. I'm poor. Help me. SOS. Yeah. But to be an adult and still be like relishing off. Like I just know people who are like, sometimes I'm like, I think they wanted to have a bad childhood and they didn't get it. And now they're just pretending because they want, that's like their personality.
Yeah. I'm going to circle back to like the fucking Christian conversation. A lot of people conflate victim with you being the good person. Like if you're the victim, if you're not the victim, you're the aggressor. And so like if you think, oh, to be good, you have to be the victim. Because like, have you ever asked someone who was born into a wealthy family, are you rich? They almost are taken aback as if you ask them, are you a bad person?
Bad person, yeah.
And they're like, I'm not bad. We're well off.
We're comfortable.
Yeah, like because they want to like rich is a bad label. They like to them because that it means that they're the aggressor, right? So like like if you people often think being the victim means you're good, and it's way too oversimplified. Yeah, that's why we all got to get to neutral. This is why
But seriously, I was talking about this with my therapist the other day. I told my partner, I said, what I want to work on is be more, I don't know if this is exactly what you're saying. This might be different. And now I'm halfway through the sentence. I'm like, maybe this is not what she means. But I am working on being more emotionally neutral to things that don't need to be, they don't need to have an emotion attached to them, which I think is sometimes the opposite feeling of like, I should be more in touch with my emotions. But it's like, for example, like in my relationship, if I'm like, if my partner's like, I'm overwhelmed. Yeah. And then I'm like, I have overwhelmed you. You're overwhelmed because I'm doing something wrong. Yeah. Where it's like, no, that could just be like data. Like, this is where we're at. You're overwhelmed. What should we do with that? Or like, it can all just be like, we're aware now of this. Like, what can we do? It does not need to be like a reflection on you or how you've done wrong or what. It's just more neutral. It's like, here's the information that's going on and here's how we can move forward and not taking everything. So, or even if it's like, my friend's mad at me. Yeah. Got it. Okay. I can do with that what I need to do without being like, I should just run away off into the nowhere and never see anyone again.
Well, I mean, like, if your partner is like overwhelmed and like you said, like, I overwhelmed them, you've now subconsciously like pitted each other against each other. Right. And that's like, and if you're neutral, you have the capacity to work with them. Yes. You know, and you're like, okay, should I, instead of like, oh my God, I'm the worst person ever, I overwhelmed them, you're like, if you're trying to be neutral, you're like, maybe I should just tone it down a bit. Yeah. Go in another room. Yeah. And like, that's a way that you can take control of your input in this situation. Yeah. And then they get to whatever. Mm-hmm. So we're all just trying to, what's that gear shift? Like the Prindle to like neutral. The Prindle. We're all just, it's like, if you automatically assume that someone else is bad or you've done something bad, we gotta. But yes, there's a couple more things. Not doing anything all day.
100%.
Mm-hmm. There's showing up to a formal occasion in a t-shirt and jeans. Oh yeah. Oh my God, this is a bell chart. You know, like when it's like where it becomes like when people on TikTok talk about old money.
Yeah.
They're like, you know, someone's like really rich if they just wear like sandals and sweats. Like if you sometimes you'll see someone who's so like poor or so rich that they often look alike.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's kind of the like, it is that bell shape where you're like really, really hyper liberal, lives off the land, whatever. And then like anti-vaxxer, Republican, anti-gay, they are just, they are one breath away from the same person somehow. Also having specific diets, like not eating because you can't afford to versus recreational fasting.
Oh, yeah. This is also like another thing, another conversation, like what's okay if you're a man and not if you're a woman. Like incredibly restricted eating, like men who like power lift and stuff like that. Yeah. You've only eaten chicken and rice for weeks. You are anorexic.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And there's like eating this says eating cheese as a meal, which makes me laugh. Like, you know, because you can just eat cheese and you're considered poor. But then if you're having it like a cheese platter on a charcuterie board, $1,000 plate, then it's nice. But it also reminds me of like, I immediately think of like Trisha Paytas, like in a car eating like Popeyes, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it feels so rich for some reason. You're like, and things do trend. It's like the D'Amelios love Dunkin'. And now Dunkin' is like cool when I'm like, that's so funny because Dunkin' has never been like upscale cool. Dunkin' is like where America runs on Dunkin'. All of America runs on Dunkin'. And so it really just depends like who's doing it, because me getting Dunkin' every morning does not feel classy versus if Trisha Paytas has these like long nails, $250,000 extensions, and she's eating her fries, it feels classy.
That's literally me with smoking. Like if you see me in the morning, no makeup, sweats, you're like, what the fuck happened? But if you see like Kendall Jenner with like a cigarette, you're like, God, she like makes it look so cool.
Oh, yeah. Or that picture of like Jenna Ortega going viral that was like her she has like a glass of red wine and she's chatting, smoking a cigarette.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry. No one of your age, I love Jenna Ortega. Why are you smoking a cigarette? She's like 20 years old. Come on.
Do better. But I mean, there's literally, speaking a second language is a huge one.
Oh my God, yes. That one really gets my gears going.
And it's like, especially, I feel like it's happened, there's such a huge stigmatization around Spanish particularly.
Oh, yeah.
But like, it's like, God, you fucking, okay, then the heavy drinking, anything with substance abuse. Doing
cocaine.
Oh my God. The fact that it's so normalized, the fact that you can go to, not Hobby Lobby, but like a store and
get
something
cocaine at Hobby Lobby.
Oh no, it says, please don't do coke in the bathroom. If you had a sign in your bathroom that says, please don't do crack in the bathroom, people would be like, where the fuck am I? But it's like cute and dainty if you're like, please don't do coke in the bathroom.
Yeah, because it's like, wait, people who shop here can afford Coke? Yeah. I'm in the right place. It's like insane.
But if you had, please don't do crack in the bathroom. Oh my God.
But then also it's like rich people. Oh, it just irritates me too, because it's just like, rich people live in these communities where everybody's doing the same exact stuff as they are in like the town 2 over that has so much police force that it's like considered a bad neighborhood, but they're doing the same exact stuff. And then they're like, well, we just don't go over there because there's a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
But don't go in my basement because my son's doing a lot of drugs. It's like,
seriously.
What? You have no self-awareness. Like, at least be like, you know, that's like when someone will leave a hate comment too. Yeah. And they say something really mean. And then you go to their profile and you're like, interesting. You know, it's like the no self-awareness where they'll be like, you'll see comments will be like, you are the fucking worst singer of all time. Yeah. And you go to their profile and it's just them doing covers of like Olivia Rodrigo songs in their living room and they sound horrible. And you're like, come on. Don't set yourself up like this.
That is the power of denial. But yeah, the entire pharmaceutical industry, like, the rich people will have like cabinets full of like painkillers. Meanwhile, someone's heroin. It's like, buddy, how do you think they got there? Like, they got probably started with painkillers. You are one unfortunate situation away from doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, we kind of talked about getting money from the government. And that also kind of goes into like tax deductions as well.
This is one I want to do. Okay. Having a lot of cars, having an old car in your driveway, right? If you have like an old vintage car that you're working on, that's classy, right? But if you have a car that's up on blocks, trashy. It's like it could be the same make and model. They just haven't fixed it up and there's no wheels.
Yeah. Yes, 100%.
Have you ever lived somewhere where you had a car on blocks in the driveway?
No, but I've lived next to a house that had a lot of cars in the driveway and not in a classy way. Yeah, because also I feel like it's also the proof of doing the thing too. It's like, oh, this person fixes up cars.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's surrounded by tools. It's surrounded by, like, it's up on blocks. It's doing all this stuff. And then you have someone who's like, I work on cars. And I'm like, do you? Because there's no proof of that. It's just a really nice car sitting in a driveway. Or you'll see like Anna Sitar. You know Anna Sitar?
No.
You don't know Anna Sitar?
Is she
She drinks the
Polish?
coffee and she goes, she's not, I don't know if she's Polish. She lives in America. I don't know.
Yeah.
She like drinks the coffee. She does the Starbucks videos. She drinks the coffee and she goes, it's so good.
Oh, no.
She's kind of past that. Now she does other stuff. Anyways, she's like, I work on cars. Like, I'm cool. I work on cars. She seems very nice. But it's always like her in this really fancy garage with like her Jeep that doesn't need to be fixed. It's like a new Jeep. And she's like, I'm like putting it up higher. What's that called?
Raising it. Yeah.
So it's like she's working on a car, but I'm like, yeah, but she doesn't need to fix this car. Like, she definitely pays someone to fix this car.
Yeah.
She also always has a new car. So like, there's really nothing like she can go into this fancy, like, what seems like she has a warehouse she owns. I don't know, where she fixes up cars. I'm like, so this feels very classy, but there's not a lot you have to really do to, I don't know.
No, yeah. I mean, it's like the presence of dirt or the lack of it.
Yeah. Or like, I guess if you're like a good parent, people are like, oh, you're a good parent. Your house is so clean. Okay. If I was a parent, I think my house would be really clean because I'm kind of a clean freak, but not freak. Okay. But anyways, I'm very clean. But sometimes it'll be like, oh, like, look how beautiful their house is. Such a good mom versus like, oh, there's maybe for like Trashy, if you're poor, there's like toys everywhere and there's like a cutting board on the table with like avocado cut up and it's like, oh, she's a bad mom, but it's like, well, she seems like she's been doing a lot of parenting, you know what I mean?
Seriously, the lack of community resources.
Dun dun dun. Okay, we'll close it out with avoid paying taxes. That's 100% true.
Ooh, I want to read this one. Rich people collect, poor people hoard. So
What is that one?
collecting became popular after World War II with the mass production boom of items. Collecting beforehand usually only pertained to rich people because what was collected? Antiques. So antiques could only rich people could afford it. So then now collecting became popular. But yeah, if poor people hoard, rich people collect. Kim Kardashian is hoarding. There is no... I'm not going to get into it.
It's very true. Also, getting away from it all. And I think as a person who, I'll say it again, lived in New York.
Yes.
When I lived in New York, I was so annoyed by the rich people who lived there.
Yes.
Because they all love New York City. They are like, New York or die. It's the greatest place on earth.
Yeah.
And I worked at a restaurant and then I was a janitor and my life was fucking horrible and I couldn't afford anything and I was in so much debt and I didn't have laundry and unit and my apartment was infested with rats and it was just like horrible, horrible, horrible.
Yeah.
And every summer, it's crazy people talk about LA being hot because if you've ever spent the summer in New York, it's fucking horrible. First of all, they don't have AC in any apartment.
Yeah.
You have like a tiny window unit. It is less hot than it is here, but it is 50 million times more humid.
Yeah.
It's so hot. And where do rich people go for this time? They go up to the Hamptons.
Yeah.
They go, wait, Hamptons? Is that LA or that's...
Hamptons is New York.
New York. They go up to whatever the upstate. They go up to upstate New York. They go up to upstate New York, or they have houses in somewhere else, and they leave. They all leave during the summer. No rich people are there, and I know because I worked at a luxury gym, and we had way less clients in the summer because no one was there. And it's like, of course you fucking like New York. All you do is Uber around and see Broadway shows, and leave when it's hot, and then leave when it's cold, and then you eat out at all these amazing restaurants. And like, don't tell me you like New York. You don't live in New York. You live on Mars, which is a different place than everyone else lives. Meanwhile, no one else can afford to do. People would always be like, oh, you live in New York. Do you see shows all the time? I'm like, no, I've never seen a show while I've lived here because I can't afford it. And I'm working 6 to 7 days a week.
Yeah.
When would I go to see these shows? Oh, do you ever just sit in Central Park and read a book? I'm like, no, I don't do any of this. Also, I don't live near Central Park. I live like an hour train ride from Central Park. None of this is like New York. So I think sometimes there's a lot of that where it's like getting away from it all is very rich. Whereas like
immigrating is poor. No, yeah, exactly. I was going to say, leaving your home when it's uncomfortable and going somewhere else. Classy if you're rich, going to the Hamptons. Yeah. If you're literally immigrating from somewhere poor.
Yeah.
Oh, where you lived became too uncomfortable or to live there? It's
like when people move out of the country and you see a lot of liberal people do this. Like when Trump was elected, they're like, I'm leaving the country.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, thanks for leaving all of us here. And also, like, if you're able to afford to leave the country, you're probably fine, honestly. Yeah. Like, you're probably, I mean, unless you were like, I mean, once again, depends on the person. Every person is different. But if you were like, oh, my daughter has like severe disabilities and we want to make sure that she has health care, like that is a different situation. But I'm talking about people who are just like, I'm mad and I'm moving to Canada. It's like, okay, well, we could really use your help over here.
Yeah, you're just a defector. Couldn't take the war. This one is actually incredibly like immediate intersection. Spending Christmas at a community soup kitchen. Yeah. Oh, you're giving away versus receiving. Shut up. Shut up.
Nuts. Also having a romantic or sexual relationship with a massive age gap. That's interesting. I never thought about that.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of...
Well, yeah.
That one can be complicated, I think.
That's a bit of a tricky situation.
That's a tricky situation on both ends. Also...
having a unique name.
Oh, sure.
Oh my gosh.
Apple?
The McKaylee's, all this crap. Oh, yeah. Like Apple, and then...
whatever Elon Musk's kid's name is, Z1252, I don't know.
Xylocarp or something.
This is a good one, too. Having an outdoor shower. Mm-hmm. Oh, this one's having fake teeth.
I'm an indoor-outdoor shower.
What? Oh...
Sorry.
You are.
I am.
There's also having fake teeth, which we need to talk about because apparently it's trending. Everyone's getting veneers.
And grills.
I guess grills
actually
is different.
Grills? Crosses.
What?
Grills is across every class.
Sure.
However, it was started by... Yeah, okay. So, but veneers.
Veneers. And everyone is getting, well, not everyone, that's too much, but all these rich people are like getting veneers. I'm like, why? Who have fine teeth? They have perfectly fine teeth. I've even seen, and also once again, whatever you do with I don't care what you do with your body. I don't actually care, but I am just like, ooh, that is scary because I even saw a video of a girl being like, I loved my teeth before, but I just wanted them to be a little nicer. She got veneers. I'm like, you can't go back from that. And they do fall out. You're going to be on a vacation in the Bahamas and you're going to bite into something and your veneers going to fall out and you're going to have to walk around with a little shark tooth. And then there are these people being like, well, if you get veneers, you don't have to get a shark tooth one. You can get it shaved just a little bit. And I saw this video where all these dental assistants were being like, you can't just shave a tooth really a little bit. Like, if they've shaved it enough to put a thing over it, you will not want your teeth to be without a veneer. Yeah. It's going to look insane.
Why don't you just get I know that it's incredibly invasive, but tooth surgery, to rotate teeth if you don't want to wait through braces or Invisalign? Why would you go straight for veneers?
I don't, because it's trending to have teeth like JoJo Siwa. I'm like, you don't want teeth like JoJo Siwa. She glows in the dark. It's horrifying.
Being on a first name basis with a judge. Oh, Jake, you're funny. Oh my God, we're gonna include this as a clip. Jake is our research assistant, and he's also posting these clips. If you guys should follow our Instagram and TikTok, and our Jake is handling our social media now. So go give him a little, rile him up.
So a clip will actually be posted that you can watch because when I was in charge of it, not much was going on.
So go, Jake asked questions. Go answer his questions. And tell him that this one was funny, being on a first name basis with a judge. Jake also does comedy as well. I think he's in New York.
Yes, he's based in New York.
All right, so he's hot in the summer too.
He's up in the Hamptons right now.
he needs a Stronghold setting spray.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening. You know what? Next time you go to think in your brain, that person's trashy. Why don't you say, well, what would I think if that was Kim K? Mm-hmm. Because she might just change your mind. Mm-hmm. And just don't judge.
And then be a neutral force and remove yourself from the room.
Exactly. The room.
You're too close to the situation.
Thank you so much for listening. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts, make sure to I said subscribe, but that's YouTube. Like, review, and listen again.
I thought you were going to say refuse.
Refuse, recycle, renew, and reuse.
Yes.
And then if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and comment down below.
Wait a minute. That's actually a great addition to reuse, recycle, reduce, refuse.
Refuse.
Just outright.
No more trash.
No samples, please. Yes.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you have a wonderful Wednesday and a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks.